Yeah, tell us about Gino Felino, huh?
Tell us about Gino Felino.
Oh, God, I don't...
After literally just talking about how little he remembers this movie.
Yeah, really.
So as a preface, Hans just watched this movie, I think legitimately less than 5 hours ago. He watched this today, and I don't think he could tell you a single thing about it. So let's hear what he has to say.
But you can't check your six. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like old Tom.
Hello, and welcome back to Steven See It All. I'm Hans.
I'm Aaron.
Oh, good job. I'm Zach, I guess.
And this is the fourth installment of our year-long saga of watching every Steven Seagal movie until we seen them all and have extreme depression.
Or die.
Yeah, so Zach's right. Out for Justice. Literally watched it today. I remember more about Hard to Kill than I do from for Out for Justice, and I watched Hard to Kill 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know why that's the case. I just really this one. I was super confused by the plot. So let's go over. I'm gonna go through the plot as I remember it, and feel free to interrupt and correct me.
Okay, cool.
So we've got Gino Felino. Gino Felino. I didn't even know his last name was Felino. I only ever heard him called Gino in this movie.
I don't think they actually ever call him that.
They do say it once.
The
character I know says Gino Felino because it burned itself into my mind immediately. It is by far the best Seagal character name so far. This is the only one where when I talk about the movie, I don't just say Steven Seagal does this, Steven Seagal
does this. One is Gino Felino.
Gino Felino.
So
right up there with Jimmy Fingers, pause for laugh.
Gino Felino. He is an NYPD detective. I'll stop reading there. I had to know what police force he was a part of, but I forgot. It's because he's in Brooklyn. And he has the absolute worst, god-awful Brooklyn
swinging
accent.
For the fences on the accent this time.
Throughout the entire movie. It's just unbearable. And he does this head bob thing when he talks. Oh, awful. Anyway, so he's a detective. He's in a van with his cop buddy, stereotypical partner. They see some women getting assaulted by this guy, and his partner says, "No, we're here to do a job. Why don't you wait? We can't do anything about it." Of course, Gino Felino jumps out of the van, has all of his cop buddies run their sting faster or something. I don't know. Beats up the guy who was beating up the woman. Doesn't just arrest him, threatens to arrest him, then throws him through a car window, through a shop window, and then back through another car window. Good times. I don't remember what happens after that. He is out for justice. I really don't remember what happens after that. Oh, no. So we skip to cop friend, partner, who was, what is it? He was having a bad time, some problems at home, but he promised he has it under control, no worries. Next scene, he gets shot in front of his wife and kids.
Actually, so we kind of hinted at this before, that we're thinking this is the fastest partner death thus far. A partner has to die, and they're getting more efficient with this. I can tell you it happens exactly the first, so he's not actually dead, but the first shot, 5 minutes and 23 seconds.
That's pretty quick.
Film, including the title sequence.
Yeah, that's including credits.
Within 6 minutes.
He
is really shot quick. In front of his family at the local Italian markets.
So this is where I just got lost, because I thought there was something a lot more important going on in this movie, and I just didn't get it. And Zach told me, no, it's actually just the guy that killed him. He's going on a psychotic rampage, and that's pretty much it. Gino has to stop him because the cops don't know how to stop him. And there's a specific line where Seagal says, "No, you just have to let me do my thing. Give me an unmarked and a shotgun, and let me do my thing." And his superior just gives him the soulful head nod. So it's the same thing. He's a cop, but he's allowed to go and break the law on his own to get results. I guess.
They literally just tell him at the beginning of the movie, "You're allowed to just break as many laws as you want."
It's
like you said, there's roughly more things happen, events occur, but in terms of the actual plot, that's it. This is the fastest synopsis possible. Richie Madonna, played by William Forsythe, literally just he has some friends that he says, if you hang out with me, I'll give you money. And then he just kills a random woman in traffic. He's just going on a rampage, just like being a monster. And like, you go to the cops and they're like, yeah, we know he's bad. We'll try to stop him. And Seagal's like, you're not going to be able to stop him. And Seagal goes to the mob who he's friends with. And they're like, yeah, we don't like him either. We're going to stop him. And Seagal goes, you're not going to be able to stop him. So just nobody likes this guy. And it's just, he's just doing bad stuff for the movie until Seagal kills him. That's it.
That's literally it. Somewhere in there,
although,
completely unrelated. And this is what this ties back into, Aaron, your theory about Seagal like picking something in a movie that is something important to him in some weird way that he has to show off that he's conscious about it.
It's the most kind of like obvious.
But like really bad, and so the actual text of the film contradicts it.
Right, so just out of nowhere, has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the film. He's following a guy that has a bumper sticker on the back of his car. I don't even remember what it said. What did it say?
Oh, it said "kill them all and let God sort them out" or whatever.
That's what it was.
Dog throwers.
Yeah, and he makes a point of reading out this bumper sticker so you remember, like, you know instantly you're going to come back to this later in the movie. And the guy just throws a trash bag out onto the road. Seagal gets out of his car, opens with a trash bag, and it's a puppy. And you're like, oh, that's terrible. So he says something about how people are so shitty, whatever. So then he just keeps this puppy with him while he's going on a rampage trying to kill the guy who's also going on a rampage.
Also, so there's implications later on that I think are extremely hilarious that I like just thought about in the moment while I was watching this. So like you said, he just kind of brings the dog around, doesn't drop it off at home, doesn't, leave it with family, friends or anything.
Let me just interrupt you real quick.
Sorry,
the dog is fine. Nothing happens to the dog.
You're right. Yes. Dog,
don't worry.
Totally good for the whole movie.
Yeah, no dog.
Post trash bag, nothing bad happens. That is a good disclaimer to give.
I was worried for a second, actually.
So first of all, he kind of has two pet causes in this one. He kind of has two themes. It's like the animal abuse one, like he takes care of this dog. At the beginning, there's like in his opening monologue, in his narration, there's something about like neighborhoods and like, community and like, neighborhood change and people losing connection with each other. It's about like, this isn't a good neighborhood anymore.
It wasn't his monologue, though. It was a quote from somebody else, wasn't it?
Well, it starts off, there's a quote from the playwright Arthur Miller that opens the movie, which was a choice. But also he then touches on it. He's like, the neighborhood is changing. And then it doesn't really, again, as pointed out by Aaron, our resident scholar here, it doesn't really tie into the themes of the movie because it's just this one guy that everybody hates. It's not actually like the neighborhood's like...
No, everyone agrees.
This guy that decided to go on a murderous rampage.
It's this one guy, but everyone agrees he sucks, and they all want to stop him, right? Honestly.
He unites the neighborhood. You have, like, all these people from different walks of life who get together because they hate Richie.
Right, and then, spoiler alert, so yes, and there's the man who throws the dog out the window, and spoiler alert for the very end of the movie, they do encounter the man again, they see the bumper sticker in his car, so Steven Seagal does kick him in the nuts, and then the dog does do a pee on the guy's face, so he does get his comeuppance, and that is like the emotional high point of this movie.
It really is.
But, my favorite part, I think, with the dog, honestly, is that he's always in the car, but really not. There's a car chase at one point in the movie when he's chasing after the bad guys who are driving down a road, and Seagal makes the decision to drive down, like, a set of stairs that are next to the road.
It's like on an underpass.
He's going, like, under, that's, like, kind of, like, very bumpy. Like, it's honestly, maybe, it's hilarious, like, how much this guy is bumping. Like, he is just... It cuts to these like cabin like shots, and he is like pogo sticking this car.
It's very much a car from the 90s with the suspension that just like bobs and weaves and rocks for hours.
Awesome.
I'm not going to say it's a good car chase, but it is one of my favorite movie car chases now, just because of that, how ridiculous it is. I don't know why he's not on the road, why he's on the steps, but like, is the dog in the car at that point? You see him bobbing. You don't see the dog during that time, but like he never dropped the dog off and picked him back up. Theoretically, this dog is like in this like...
Well, and then later in the movie, he goes, like he still has the dog. He gets the dog out of the car to go buy food.
So it's just very much like when it's not convenient to have the dog is not there. And it was just while I was watching the movie, I'm thinking, oh, he looks so ridiculous. The amount this car is like jumping up and down as if it's on hydraulics. And then I'm like, wait, there's supposed to be like a puppy in there.
Oh yeah,
so I appreciate
the puppy is forgotten whenever it's convenient, and then brought back whenever it would be cute.
Yeah,
well, because then it comes back because he's at the store getting like dog food, and we
not
have
that New Jersey dog food though.
Yeah, not that radioactive stuff.
I'm gonna go ahead and claim that as my favorite line.
I think that's the best line of the whole movie. Like,
Probably, yeah.
He says,
But
we didn't say the actual line. He picks up the puppy food and says, "None of this stuff was from Jersey, is it? I don't want any of that radioactive stuff."
And again, a very funny line with a very weird pacing because he like does not wait for the other person in the scene. Like,
No, he
he
doesn't
does
wait
not
for
give
the
him time to
punchline.
react. Like, the guy's still talking, and he says, you know, the radioactive line. So the guy, the shopkeeper's just like, "Oh yeah," like. Weirdly enough, it's actually kind of how like conversation happens in real life when a person's just talking and you're like, "Oh yeah, sure," like, "Yeah, that's the comment you made," and you just move on.
it was very naturalistic.
It's
That was
very
great.
weird
Some
for
like
a
guerrilla
movie.
filmmaking, huh?
Honestly. Speaking of, there is a scene I would like to talk about when he goes to the pool hall. This happens in his other movies. This started with Above the Law. This is a thing he just does. Steven Seagal seems to think that when you are a detective, the act of detecting is just going to a place of business and like threatening the owner and beating up the patrons there.
No,
It doesn't matter.
Yes,
We're
he did this in the
Yes.
last movie too. He
Yeah,
would just like
he does this all the time.
smack people, even people
Yeah,
he
he-
likes.
Yeah, and they do not have a connection. Like, maybe some of them in the bar do, but he doesn't differentiate between them. He just threatens everybody. In this one, he does the Seagal thing where everyone's like, "Ooh, you got a badge and gun." So he like unloads his gun and puts his gun down. And he's like, "All right, fist fight." He, you know, this is one of
He
his
says
more
the
egregious.
badge is your prize if you take me down.
Yes. And just like again, even in like Above the Law, he kind of beats people up. He does his Aikido flips. In this one, it is brutal. He puts a cue ball into like a cloth that he has, like a small towel, and like hits a guy in the face to knock his teeth out. And it is like actually
credit to the Foley artist. The sound it makes when it hits somebody in the head is like really good. Like,
That's
because he like hits a dude over the back of the head, and you're like, that guy has brain damage.
So
Yeah.
that's something I actually wanted to bring up too, just while you mention it, because the sound of that in that scene, I thought the same thing. It was perfect. But then he, in the scene later on in the movie where he finally gets to like the apartment where Richie is like hiding out at, and he's like the final fight, and he starts punching people. It's like the worst. It's the worst Foley. It's the complete opposite, because he'll punch somebody, make contact, and then you hear like a clip art, whoosh, and it's
Yeah.
the worst. And it's such a stark contrast.
Well, so this happens in other movies too. It's the worst in this one so far, where because his entire martial arts that he does is like harmlessly pushing away people and then flipping them. Like, half of his moves are he just kind of he doesn't punch. He just kind of pushes a guy by the face away. So the movie drastically overcompensates with like cartoonishly silly sound effects,
Yeah.
where they're like, he breaks the guy's arm because they play the arm break sound effect, or he like successfully hit the guy because they play like a Looney Tunes punch sound effect.
Yeah. There was one part of that scene that I really, really enjoyed though, and it's when he walks by the guy. There's like a phone booth inside this bar. For some reason,
Yes.
and he walks by. He's like doing his rounds around, just like asking people
Where he's
where
just
Richie
kind
is.
of, yeah.
And he just, like,
mocking them.
Takes this guy by the face and pushes him into the telephone booth. And then
closes
later,
it.
after he beats everybody up, he does his rounds again and walks by the same guy and pushes his face into the telephone booth a second time.
That's pretty funny, actually.
I
That
did
was
actually
very
really like
good.
that. This guy's entire role in the movie is getting shoved in the phone booth and the door closed, and then post-fight same thing again. And I won't spoil it now. I think this scene also, this is where my best worst quote from this movie comes from. But yeah, and he doesn't get any information. I will say, I love the way Wikipedia sums up this scene. He still does not find out where Richie is, but his concern about getting an attitude problem has been taken care of.
That's one
Praise to whoever summed that up on Wikipedia. Like, the scene is completely useless, but there you go. So this one, actually, I did the most research on this, reading Wikipedia, on this movie about the behind-the-scenes drama of this one. So, first and foremost, beautiful Steven Seagal lore to share here. It is on the set of this film. It is on the set for Out of Justice, where allegedly, Steven Seagal urges stunt coordinator Gene LaBelle by saying, "I cannot be choked out." He urges him to choke him out actually, inarguably, very skilled athlete, Jean LaBelle, puts Steven Seagal in a headlock and chokes him out until Steven Seagal passes out, urinates, and defecates his pants.
I think that's the part that's subject to some
theory.
I think from every account we've heard, it definitely happened that he choked him out. Like he said, "You won't be able to choke me out." He chokes him out, and then some people say he shit his pants.
And it's I saw that in an interview in like 2012 or so. LaBelle hints towards it, but does not outright confirm it. But basically, as far as the internet is concerned, it's confirmed Steven Seagal crapped his pants when Jean LaBelle choked him out. Also, this one had some of the more interesting behind-the-scenes kind of drama going on. So the guy playing Richie, William Forsythe, while making this movie, first of all, this one almost got an NC-17 rating for the gore and the violence and the brutality. Mm-hmm. And two, Steven Seagal was concerned that William Forsythe, the character, the main villain of the film, was overshadowing him, was like upstaging him.
What?
So he demanded that scenes were cut. Like William Forsythe, some of his scenes were cut.
What?
So this movie, like, it's really weird because it ends up at like the exact length that a Seagal movie should be at, 91 minutes. But then you learn that actually a lot of this movie was like cut out and trimmed, and there was like some drama in the editing.
Weird.
And so that's why there's some scenes in the middle that feel a little weird, where just like Seagal is kind of doing, where Detective Gino Felino is kind of just doing his own thing, and while Richie Madonna is kind of just doing his own thing, like they're both just being monsters in their own way. And it's just like, there's no dialogue, it's just kind of like a montage scene. It's because they had like whole scenes that would have been in there, but they did not have like the connectivity of after they removed these scenes. So it's just like dialogue-free montage. So awesome. Steven Seagal was feeling challenged by his co-star, and perhaps in my headcanon, maybe this is why he said, "I can't be choked out. Jean LaBelle should try to choke me out." And then allegedly defecated and urinated in his pants upon passing out. But yeah, this one has kind of some of the more interesting continuity mistakes and weird edits that went on behind the scenes because of Seagal's ego is what I've been led to believe. Are there any... the main thing to touch on with the plot of this movie, boy, is it weird about women.
Okay.
I was waiting for it. I know Aaron has a lot to say about this.
Okay.
Boom. 4 episodes into the Steven Seagal Hate Watch podcast, and we hit you with the film theory feminism. You're welcome.
No. Okay. So. He has a very strange thing about women, specifically dead, naked women.
Yes. Who may or may not be sex workers. Like, it's a hyper-specific trope that has appeared now in different ways in a couple of his movies. And so I'm very afraid to see it show up in future ones. The most egregious one before this was Marked for Death.
Yes.
When he's in a club and this woman's like, please, no more. A naked woman is like, please, no more, and then shoots and like kills one of the police there.
Yeah, well, and it happened in Hard to Kill as well, because his wife was murdered immediately after their sex scene, and she's...
Right.
So there's the sex scene, and then immediately she's killed. So they're, like, separated. And then in Marked for Death, the prostitute in, like, there's also a theme in that movie where, like, he'll see a crime happening and then just move on.
Yeah.
Because there's all the prostitutions going on in the Danny Trejo scene. That the opening of the film is, for me, the Danny Trejo scene. And then they also see, like, the kids selling drugs at the high school. Mm-hmm. And he just, like, walks by.
He's like, yeah.
And so you see the woman who is not involved in any sort of sexual thing at the moment is murdered after pulling a gun. And then now, in this movie...
I will point out in the sex scene of him and his wife with Hard to Kill,
yes.
He's fully clothed during that. That's the thing that pops up in his movies. He is fully clothed while she is like naked and throwing herself at him before she is brutally killed.
It becomes a theme too.
And then in Out for Justice, he comes upon Richie's girlfriend, his
sister? Are you talking about
the girlfriend?
No, the girlfriend that she's dead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That his partner was also with.
Yes. Okay.
There were photos. It was very graphic.
Yes. Yeah. That was
But she is at her home, naked on top of the covers of her bed, dead.
It's legitimately sickening to look at.
Yeah, it's
gruesome.
like very disturbing.
Very gruesome. Yeah.
But like we've seen this progression of like a very specific kind of sexual violence.
And it's one or two really grossly like violent deaths of barely clothed or completely naked women, and then this movie, it just hockey stick growth.
Yeah.
Like, it's legitimately like every scene a woman is in, she's
Yes.
naked and being brutally killed.
Yeah.
Like, that's all. Or it's like I said there, Richie's sister that he like threatens and arrests like to try to get at Richie.
Yeah.
And so of course the whole time he's arresting her, he's like calling her a whore and getting other people to call. It's like, it's just,
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
there's definitely, so when you talk about, especially like, you know, when discussing like media, and if you try to point out misogyny in film or like, you know, other media, you often kind of have the person who, you know, doesn't see it, doesn't want to talk about it, like, this isn't an issue. And they'll say, like, it's not misogyny. Like, you know, they don't hate women. Like, you know, this isn't, like, you know, hatred. This is just, you know, the way they're depicted. I think this one, you could take the most, like, anti-feminist, like, film bro on the internet. If you show him this movie, he will say, no, I think Steven Seagal, like, hates women.
Well,
Just, like,
okay.
a woman existing, he, like, there's like a genuine capital H hatred.
Can we talk about then, in the context of all that, and in this film, the relationship between Gino Felino and his wife Vicky Felino, who seems that they are married in the middle of a divorce with a child and know nothing about each other. Like, there's actually a scene in this movie where he explains to his ex-wife his parentage. She knows nothing about his family. Like, he explains, like, what his dad did for a living, like sharpening knives.
Yeah. And then
does kind
She's
of
never heard
track
this story
with,
before.
which does track with Seagal's life. Like,
it's does a little bit.
it tracks with the guy who marries a woman in Japan and then just like abandons her, like to have like, and marries another woman who doesn't know he's already married. Like,
yeah,
that
so
kind
like
of is
his conception of marriage is like, why would she know anything about me?
Right.
Well, and they're in the middle of a divorce. He doesn't know anything about her. She doesn't know anything about him. And then at one point, like, she's so concerned about his safety that he's going on this rampage trying to find Richie. At one point, she basically tells him, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't quite follow this, but she basically says, like, if you just, like, quit right now, we can be together, and everything will be fine, and it'll just, like, go back to normal, and I guess they'll just stop the divorce?
Well, they end up stopping the divorce anyway.
Yeah.
So it ends up not mattering.
The marital conflict there kind of didn't happen? I don't know. They didn't really. I mean, they put a lot more effort into Richie killing a random woman on the street who honked her horn at him than they did.
Jesus,
yeah,
that's
which
Gino
was
Felino's
disturbing.
personal
That
life.
was a disturbing moment in this.
That
movie.
really was.
Like, it was brutal and unexpected. Like, this movie, in the hands of a different director and a different lead actor, actually could have been like something interesting.
Oh no, I think
the guy that played Richie pulled everything off just perfect. Like the complete psychopath, he
like
pulled that off really
Psycho
well.
If
there was like no Seagal and it kept the NC-17 rating and it was just like this brutal indictment of like organized crime and policing culture in Chicago, like
I think it could have been a great film.
In an interesting director's hands, this film would have something to say, and it's like trapped in the Seagal star vehicle film.
I'm sorry, John Flynn, director of Out for Justice.
So that's what I was saying earlier. I didn't know this. John Flynn directed this movie, and his first directing credit was in 1968.
Wow. He'd been at this for a long time.
Yeah.
And then he was handed Seagal, and he just did the best that he could with what he was given.
Well, and so, okay, we're talking about Seagal as if he's like poison, but I really want to talk about the star power of this film.
Okay.
Can we? Okay, we've been talking about in the last few episodes.
Yeah.
Like, people who were in a Seagal movie and went on to do much better things.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay. So firstly...
And this one also, like the past ones, has like a nice secret, like, bit part, like, you know, out of nowhere star power.
Yes.
And we have to take advantage of this while we can, because in his later films, there's like nothing.
It does not come up. So, firstly, sort of a funky one, Jerry Orbach, who in this movie... plays Ronnie Donziger.
He's like the police captain.
He plays Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast, the 1991 animated Beauty and the Beast.
Really?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's cool, right?
Yeah.
He also, I want to say, he's the doctor in Dirty Dancing, it looks like. I knew he was in Dirty Dancing. I can't remember the exact
he is
role.
in Dirty
He's
Dancing.
the doctor. He
Although that was
procedure.
before this.
Okay.
And then we have Gina Gershon. So she went on to do Showgirls. She was in Face Off.
That's a real. She gets that post-movie star power.
Yes. And then we have
John
Robert
Leguizamo.
Lasardo, who was...
No, Hans, you're skipping ahead.
I'm
No.
sorry. God,
Come on, I'm going down a list. Robert Lasardo.
I don't know what list.
I'm making the list as I go. Shut up.
Yeah, go down the list in his head, obviously.
I won't. You take it away.
Yes, thank you. So Robert Lasardo was actually in the previous film. So he had done a few movies with Steven Seagal. This is not his first Steven Seagal movie. But he would go on to be in a whole bunch of TV.
He was a punk in Hard to Kill.
Yes. So he would be in a couple Steven Seagal movies, and he would go on to be like pretty big in television. So he was on 34 episodes of General Hospital, 10 episodes of Nip and Tuck. Like he'd be pretty big in TV. Gianni Russo played Carlo Rizzi in The Godfather.
Ooh.
Long before this.
So he's
was in Godfather Part 2. And unfortunately, after this movie, he would go on to do Super Mario Brothers.
Can't win them all.
The live-action Super Mario Brothers film.
Why you keep saying that's unfortunate?
Because that movie is trash, famously bad.
Okay.
But he was in Rush Hour 2, which is a much better film, but he had a tiny part in that.
Do you want to know something fun about Gianni Russo, star of The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 and Seabiscuit and Super Mario Brothers movie?
Mm-hmm.
In 1988, Gianni Russo killed a man inside a Las Vegas nightclub.
Oh my gosh.
What?
This actually, you read this is like a Steven Seagal plot. This is like the opening scene of a Seagal movie where Gianni Russo is Seagal. A man was harassing a female patron. He intervened. The man stabbed him with a broken champagne bottle. So then Russo shot him in the head.
Oh my god.
And Russo was not charged with the killing because it was ruled a justified homicide.
Wow, my goodness.
That's the opening scene of a Seagal movie right there.
It really is.
Except in order to then be the remainder of a Seagal movie, after saving this woman from being brutalized by another person, he would then have to go on to brutalize 5 other women, just to kind of karmatically balance it out.
Well, so unfortunately,
so we can say that Gianni Russo is better than a Seagal movie.
Well, Gianni Russo, it appears that unfortunately, his contact with Seagal was actually the inflection point in his career that took a downturn after that. But he was in 140.
He started with The Godfather and Godfather Part 2. It was only downhill from there.
It was only downhill from there. But he has been in 143 episodes of a Godfather podcast.
Wow.
Yo, king.
But then we get into some interesting stuff. So you get Dominic Chianese, who was in 55 episodes of The Sopranos. He played Junior Soprano.
So basically everyone, all the Italian dudes in this movie that play mobsters are just also in good mob stuff too.
Yes, because I was watching this movie and I'm like, oh, I think I've seen that guy in a mob movie because they're actually good mobsters.
I mean, admittedly, when you're watching this, they put on decent performances as mobsters in New York.
Yeah, they do a pretty good job. Juliana Margulies, she was in 135 episodes of ER. She played Carol Hathaway.
Oh, The Good Wife.
She was also in Snakes on a Plane. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Hell yeah.
That's one I've never actually seen.
She was on Snakes on a Plane.
Respect.
John Leguizamo. Who went on to actually have a real career.
It's starting off here and Out for Justice as Boy in Alley.
Moulin Rouge, Romeo plus Juliet, actual acting credits.
So this
John Wick.
Wait, hold on. You forgot tragically starring in the Super Mario Brothers live action movie as Luigi Mario.
No, my goodness. Why is there so much crossover between Steven Seagal and the Mario Brothers movie?
I must be thinking he's not just of something in the Super different. What is this movie called?
The live action Super Mario Brothers movie?
Oh, dude, John Leguizamo was in Chef?
John Leguizamo, the pest himself. The pest and Spawn star John Leguizamo Rat number 2 in Dr. Dolittle.
He played the voice of Sid in Ice Age.
He is this episode's secret cameo, uncredited, tiny bit character who just comes out of the shadow, comes out of nowhere.
He was also in 12 episodes of ER, so a lot of crossover with ER.
Oh god, he was in The Happening.
He was in Dr. Dolittle.
He was in Gamer. You remember when he was in Gamer with Gerard Butler?
Did everybody see Romeo plus Juliet? Does everybody remember that movie?
Actually, I really like that movie.
I actually love that movie.
Yeah.
Ah, man, and it's so sad that so many people that came into contact with Steven Seagal ended up being in the Super Mario Brothers movie.
And actually, wait, he was in Moulin Rouge and Romeo plus Juliet, so he's like a solid. He's in why am I blanking on the name? The director did Elvis this year.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
We're going to cut this part out. I'm going to actually just look like I know my
No, nothing gets cut.
Baz Luhrmann. Yeah, he's like, he got solid. He got like the two Baz Luhrmann films right there under the belts.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is not what I thought it was, this movie.
No.
Super Mario Bros. I feel like I need to watch this now.
Okay, and then finally, rocketing to stardom, Raymond Cruz, who was in a bunch of stuff. So he was in Steven Seagal's next film, Under Siege, next episode, so look forward to that.
Really?
He was in Alien Resurrection, Clear and Present Danger, Training Day, but what most people probably know him from is that he played Tuco in Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
and so
Tuco Salamanca
he
himself.
played one of the most memorable characters in Breaking Bad.
Damn, man, look at that look.
And it was brilliant. He was only actually in a few episodes, but he absolutely stole the show.
So, who have we crossed over with so far? Breaking Bad, Super Mario Brothers movie,
ER,
a lot of ER. There's a lot of overlap here.
There's a lot of overlap, but then I also want to say something. So I'm looking at the careers of like all the people who were in this movie, and so many of the actors in this movie are actually stunt coordinators by trade.
Yes.
They're stuntmen and stunt coordinators for like a whole bunch of other movies. And it looks like to me, not knowing all the backstory of all this stuff, this is just a theory, looking at the IMDb page and like the IMDb pages of all the actors who were in this movie. I think Steven Seagal just like got a bunch of stuntmen together and made a movie.
Yeah, probably.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, no, I'm almost certain that's what happened.
That's how, when they did we haven't talked about it yet, but part of the extra credit for this week was the SNL episode that he hosted. And the final scene that he's in doesn't have any of the SNL cast in it. It's just Steven Seagal and a bunch of stunt people that the audience didn't recognize.
What?
Like, it's wild.
That's crazy.
Although, actually, this does remind me, real quick before we wrap up, I had hinted earlier that the Seagal movies don't officially follow this naming scheme of being Steven Seagal is, but this is where I learned from behind the scenes that they did kind of have like a studio mandated rule. So the original title was allegedly The Price of Our Blood.
Yes.
Steven Seagal, The Price of Our Blood. That's what he and Steven Seagal both wanted, but Warner Brothers said it had to be a 3-word title like his other films. So Above the Law, Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, Out for Justice. They just, at this point, they said, okay, Steven Seagal movie is like a tough sounding 3-word title. It's just such a random, like a weird, like movie thing. Like it doesn't matter. There's no rule that obviously like to assume that like a movie will do well or do better if it has like, a nice snappy 3-word title is ridiculous. But it just seems like when I read that, I was just like, that's such like a dumb, like, movie executive mind thing to do. Like, no, his movie's all like 3 words, and so he's Out for Justice. That's what he gets. And also, it just so happens to sound like Steven Seagal is out for justice. That it meets this Steven Seagal is theme that doesn't last forever, but lasts for now.
No,
do we have any other thoughts? Oh, go ahead.
I have one more thing that I want to talk about. So we've looked at 4 of these movies so far, and I want to make like an actual like spreadsheet. I want to get out Excel and make a graph, because I think this is interesting. So, just looking at the last 4 movies. Okay, starting with this first movie, Above the Law. Above the Law had a budget of $7.5 million.
Okay, yes.
At the box office, it made 18.7, so about 2.5 times its budget. Which, for like a small movie, okay, fine.
Yeah,
like that's
pretty good
that's respectable.
Yeah.
His second movie, Hard to Kill, $11.5 million budget. At the box office, just under $60 million. That's really
dramatic
good.
Increase.
Dramatic increase, like 5.5 times.
Like, and admittedly, like we've said before, we rag on Skull himself because he is not the box office star he once was. Now we are watching all of these just knowing all of the bad, stuff he does. But you can see how, as a studio executive, they're like, okay, this guy's a bankable action star.
Yeah, like his first movie made 2.5 times its budget. Okay, that's pretty good. His second movie made 4.5 times its budget. That's great. His third movie, budget of 12, Marked for Death, $12 million budget, box office $58 million. Basically exactly what Hard to Kill was. At this point, he seems really reliable, bankable. You're gonna make like
that. You just make
3 to 4.5 times your budget.
Make it a 3-word
just give him some keto flips to do.
Yeah, let Steven Seagal do like weird Aikido flips and like have his ponytail and kill naked women, and then you're gonna make 3 to 5 times your budget back in money. Well, then Out for Justice, budget of $14 million. So this is his biggest movie yet. Giving a little bit more money to play around with. At the box office, it brings in under $40 million, which
so still a decent profit, but definitely
still decent compared to Above the Law, but compared to his last 2 movies, Hard to Kill and Marked for Death, not what he's used to bringing in. Which is funny because going to our reviews of everything, like my Letterboxd review, I actually gave this 2 stars, more than I gave to Hard to Kill or Marked for Death.
Yeah, and what was your least favorite quote?
Least favorite quote? I would have to look. Wait, I know there are quotes in this movie.
This is great radio.
They have to exist, right?
There was one, and
you did a perfect segue. You did a perfect segue.
I know you just gave me that softball there.
Yeah.
And I just really cannot remember anything anyone said in this movie.
No, it was very.
But
that's my problem. It's just not a memorable movie.
So the problem with this movie is that it's just not memorable at all. But I gave this 2 stars over 1 star. So I gave Hard to Kill and Marked for Death 1 star. Because Hard to Kill and Marked for Death, the plot was completely indecipherable. Like, yes. I had no idea what was going on at any moment. Out for Justice, I had no idea what was going on at any moment. But I had the single thread going through the whole movie that Steven Seagal is out for justice. And he's trying to kill a guy named Richie. And presumably what's going on in the scene has something to do with him hunting down a guy named Richie. And I could just hold on to that thread for dear life throughout the movie.
He will brutalize as many random bar patrons and sex workers as he has to kind of not actually get any information, but vaguely head in the right direction.
Yeah, nothing that he does. The only time that he does anything that actually leads him closer to Richie was totally nonviolent when he bought some tonic water from a kid off the street. That was the only thing that actually got him anywhere, because the kid then later tipped him off that Richie was at this specific house that he just happened to know where it was.
That's
happened to be like down the street
arresting
from
the
where
guy's
kid lived.
sister does nothing. Arresting his father does nothing. Like beating up his friends does nothing. Like
no.
So
talking to his mob connections, nothing.
That's a lot of really good points, and even more so than that. We're talking about that scene. The kid tips him off. The kid tips him off, and then he goes there alone. And then the cops show up later, but no one ever told the cops where. Huh?
So Steven Seagal shows up. So the kid shows up, sees what's going on, calls Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal shows up. He starts shooting everything up. And then right at the end of the fight, the mob shows up.
Oh, that's what you're right. That's what it was.
And then the cops show up.
And I guess that makes sense. Like, you hear gunshots, people are going to call the police. So I guess that makes sense. I don't know. We didn't talk about that fight though, where he shoots the guy in the leg with a shotgun.
Oh my god!
Leg clean off.
Okay. So real quick, I will say this:
the final shootout,
kind of similar to Aaron's father watching a movie like this. I'm not gonna lie. If you just with like no other context just gave me like that ending shootout. If I just had so spoiler alert, I'll jump ahead a bit. You said 2 stars, right, Aaron?
I gave it 2 stars.
I had the exact same thing. So my review was 2 stars, because most of the movie just goes nowhere and is meaningless.
Yeah.
But if you gave me just like that last fight, the last, kind of final boss fight, out of context, not knowing anything else about this movie and not knowing anything about Steven Seagal, the man himself, you could, I think, trick me into thinking he is like a cool action hero.
No, you couldn't. And I'll tell you why.
No, because in a goofy way, I'm not actually saying it's good. It's not like it was actually competently done. It just kind of like a fun, goofy, silly, self-referential action hero. Because in that movie, overall, the gunfight, it's decent. but there is like a 15-second chunk there where he just shoots a guy in the leg with a shotgun and blows it clean off, and then just kind of walks away while the guy keeps shouting at him.
Yes.
Like normally in this they fall over. They just like fall over. They're like, ah. But in this one, you just hear him in the other room being like, "You shot my leg off! Oh, what a like." He sounds like he's doing like Rick and Morty lines, like, "Oh, that sure is crazy. Oh, gee, oh, you really shot my leg off there, bud.
Oh gosh, Rick.
Oh no, my leg. Oh, he shot it off."
Oh, bad timing on the Rick and Morty reference, by the way.
I know. Ooh. Yeah, we do not condone or stand by anything related to Justin Roiland. But then immediately, as walking away from that guy, he encounters another dude, and he just full like front forward, like doesn't get into a fighting stance at all, just kicks this guy so hard he dies.
Well, this was the guy that was in the bar earlier that he knocked his front
this is
teeth
beard
out.
or tattoo.
He kicks him so hard that he like falls up backwards against a brick wall and hits his head. And
yes, I understand that, but what happens is he just shotguns a dude's leg off and then just kicks a dude to death. Those two deaths could convince me he is actually like a funny, like,
that's fair.
Well, and we
like
come back to in the hands of a different director,
right?
And if it were not Steven Seagal, I think this could have been a good movie.
Although this does, I think, for every Steven Seagal movie, I'm developing a theory that either the cinematic value of the film will either stay the same or be slightly increased if instead of watching it, you just have a person kind of like drunkenly recount what happens. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be better all the time. I'm not saying that always makes it better. But either you'll just get the same exact value out of that situation.
Yeah.
Like watching the movie or hearing a person just kind of vaguely recounts it. You're good either way. In some cases, it's better because I swear to you, just like my description of that, like, you're good. That actually makes it sound like a kind of good movie. And it's not. Yeah. It's not a good movie. But there is a scene where he shotgun blasts a dude's leg off and then kicks a guy so hard he dies. And that part, that part was pretty rad. Out of context, that's pretty rad.
Yeah.
So
the only
2
reason
stars.
I have to disagree with you on that, like the only reason, is because, and this is specifically because of things that I know about Steven Seagal as a person later in his career.
That's what I said, in a vacuum.
I know, I understand that. But I have to bring it up because I couldn't make it through the rest of that scene without laughing, because it doesn't matter how great any of the rest of it was.
You're not wrong.
When he walks into that house, he's holding a shotgun with one hand, and he's opening the door with the other, like he's ready to shoot it, like that's not just gonna fly out of his one hand. And then the rest of the time he's turning corners exactly like you're doing right now. I can see it in your camera, holding it so the like stock of the gun is not against his shoulder, it's like down in his hip, like not even in his hip, it's just floating in the air. And it is the most absurd thing for what someone who should be an action star. It takes me right out of it and reminds me, this is Steven Seagal.
It's not even that the whole scene is good. Like I'm saying, if I really just had that 10 seconds, I'd be like, actually.
I know. I'm being way too critical.
I'm sitting on the couch, right? Well, and I'm being way too positive. I get that.
I just had to bring that up because I couldn't not laugh at it. It was so bad.
But not watching the movie, if I was just sitting on the couch watching a loop of like that 10 seconds, I'd be right there with Aaron's dad, like, oh, this movie rules. Like, Steven Seagal's awesome. He just shotgun blasted that dude's leg off and then kicked a guy so hard he died. This movie gets 2 stars for me. My favorite quote comes from the scene where he's terrorizing the bar patrons, because Steven Seagal, when reading from a script, just kind of talks quite unnaturally. I'm pretty sure at this part, like I am 70% confident that he's just like riffing at one bit. When he first comes in, he's like, hey, what's this? Oh, what's going on here? Oh, look, I'm going to mess with this now. Like, I don't think that's in the script. I think he's just kind of like, they just said, just kind of riff one off the dome. And he's like just behind the bar and he's like, oh, is this your drink? This is your beer? Is this? And he picks up a hot dog. Not a hot dog in a bun. With like mustard and chili and stuff. Just like alone. Just an uncooked hot dog and goes, whose hot dog is this, eh? And just like tosses it on the counter. Is it yours? So I think, whose hot dog is this? Is probably my favorite line in that, because he's just like just kind of vaguely annoying them until he starts explicitly threatening them, and he just knocks over like 4 pitchers of beer and whose hot dog is this, eh? In the worst, we talked about at the beginning, it needs to be reiterated, the absolute worst Italian American like Brooklyn accent you have ever heard in a film. Picture Steven Seagal doing an Italian American accent. It's that bad. It's exactly what you're picturing.
It's pretty rough.
All right, does anybody else have a rating and favorite quote?
I haven't rated this one on Letterboxd yet, but
yeah, I said I give this 2 stars. Ooh, he does get an extra star in this movie because someone seems to have told him that you're not supposed to run like that in a movie.
Yeah, they fixed the running.
Yeah, he doesn't run in this movie.
They fix it by just getting rid of it.
Yeah, he just doesn't run.
That's one of those things. We had talked about this when we were watching Hard to Kill. There will be a last movie where Steven Seagal runs, because in his later movies, he just sits in a chair and has like some younger guy come in and do all the work for him. So there will be a time where he just doesn't do it anymore. I'm honestly would be surprised if we hit that moment already. There has to be another moment
I'd be
where he
psyched.
runs.
We'll see. Okay, so Hans, live on the air. What's your how many stars? I hope we didn't persuade you.
No, it's gonna be 1.5, and I would give it lower, but I know I know where we're going, and there's got to be room to go down.
So you're not as keen on this as Aaron and I.
I don't think so. It was boring. I didn't like
really
that bar scene and the
amount of glass that breaks. It was boring.
Were the highlights. Everything else was just kind of like. Stuff was just happening, and it didn't really tie into anything.
You could cut out the final shootout and put it in a different movie, and it would have been great.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you could. With a different actor who actually held the shotgun right.
No, the problem is, even whenever we're talking, I mean, it's not really a problem, but anytime we talk about these movies and kind of have a difference of opinion, like, nobody's ever wrong, though. Like, everything you just said is correct, even if I don't fully agree.
Nobody's ever wrong.
And that's okay, but I am watching this. Fine. But I am rewatching the scene now where he just shotgun blasted the dude's leg off. Oh yeah, he kind of like does like a weird stealth thing here. Also, it's very funny. It's like a minor thing, but he like grabs a dude and throws him against a brick wall, and it's very funny because it like very obviously looks like just a fake wall with like a brick texture. Like the dude hits it and like bounces, like the wall like bounces. This is just me talking because he's okay. Yeah, grabs the dude, hits him against the obviously fake wall, and then. Oh, he looks really angry, and he kicks the dude, and the dude dies. And yes, I understand he hits his head against the wall and dies, but it's just so funny that he'll go from like vaguely pushing a guy's face away to just kicking a dude so hard he just dies.
I so desperately want to talk about the SNL episode with you guys.
Okay,
that's for Patreon.
Patreon.
That would be the best running gag if we talk about things that are for the Patreon and we never actually make a Patreon.
That's the Patreon bonus. That's just it doesn't exist. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a quote, Hans?
There was one that stuck out to me. I've said this before. There was one that stuck out to me when I was watching it, and it's completely lost now. And I think that's pretty on par with my feelings for this whole movie.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I'm cool leaving it at that.
Now that I know that this is like part of our format, I'll do my best.
I'll have to pay more attention to the quotes.
Yeah,
I did just kind of spring that on you, but
no, I like it.
I do want to say, as my parting thought for this movie, so you know, like how in previous films he has a moment where like he puts down his gun in order to have a fist fight instead, so he can show off his Aikido powers. He does that twice in this movie.
Yep.
2 times.
He does it, and he kind of like in some movies, like he'll like toss it away, be like, yeah, okay, whatever, we'll fist fight. This man makes a whole big show of it. He pops out the magazine and then like racks it like 4 times to really let you know it's empty, and then drops it. He makes like such a big show of it.
And you know what? I'm actually going to go back on my previous thoughts a little bit, just a little bit, because talking about the final fight scene when he does that against Richie. Typically, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves in movies where like the final fight scene against the big boss, like this guy is equally skilled in hand-to-hand combat for some weird reason, so they have to have hand-to-hand combat, and I just like it's such a tired trope to me. I don't know, I just don't like it. I really did enjoy that in this movie, Richie has no skills.
No.
Like he is 100% prepared to die. And, like, I actually really did enjoy that.
Also, they found a way to turn every object into this overstuffed kitchen into a weapon.
Yep.
Honestly. Yeah. No, it has a pretty decent ending scene. We'll give it that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The final fight scene is pretty good, actually.
I after I remembered that, I got to give you more credit. The fight scene at the end was definitely better than I thought it was.
So real quick, this actually... We'll edit this in back to earlier where it makes sense, but something I have to touch on because we talked about it beforehand but didn't talk about it here. Okay. So Steven Seagal shows up to this crime scene in what I think has to absolutely be the worst Steven Seagal outfit thus far. So
we didn't touch on this.
I thought we were at peak ponytail last movie. The
Steven
ponytail
Seagal drip.
The Steven Seagal, the ponytail only gets longer, showing up in a beret and a black vest with like a cross necklace.
And that's
and there's no shirt under the vest.
Shows so much chest. The vest too.
And like you're like, oh, he has a shirt. No. Just bare chest Seagal with just a vest and a beret and the most hideous ponytail you've ever seen.
And it's longer and it's greasier and again,
and
like
nobody addresses it.
Mention, I have nothing against like if that's your style, that's your thing. I don't care. That's fine. But his is like visibly gross.
It's like what a 17-year-old mall ninja would think is cool.
Right. Exactly.
Steven Seagal is a mall ninja. That makes it just makes so much more sense.
He's a mall ninja.
He's a mall ninja. And like again, if you're 17, maybe you think it's cool. I don't know. But like nobody in the movie touches on this. They're just like, yep, that's Gino Felino. Like
doesn't have any uniform at all at any moment.
He's there at the crime scene, and there are cops. There are tons of other cops there, and they're all dressed in suits. They look exactly like a cop would have in the 90s. And then there's Seagal in his vest.
Gino Felino don't play that way.
And it just stands out like a sore thumb. Nobody has anything to say about it.
Can I present my headcanon fan theory?
100%.
Now that we're 4 movies deep. I think that he is playing the same character in every movie. But
that he was in the CIA and in Chicago and in New York and
he's
Chicago
just
again.
Such a horrible cop that at the end of every movie they say, "Oh, good job, Steven Seagal. We're going to promote you to Los Angeles." And then he gets to Chicago. He spends 2 whole movies in Chicago, and Chicago finally gets sick of him at the end of Mark for Death. They're like, "Okay, like we're kind of done here," and then they ship him off to New York. And the reason his accent is so bad in each of these movies is that he's trying to pretend to be a local, but he's not.
I love that headcanon.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
That, like, in this time, well, not even, like, he's trying to pretend to be a local. Like, this one time in Chicago, he's Italian. And then this other time, he's just kind of, like, he's not even trying. Like,
he's such a headache for each of the police departments that the different police departments in big cities just, like, ping-ponging back and forth.
Yeah, you're Gino Felino now. Yeah, that's okay. You just
Officer Gino Felino. I don't know.
You just want an unmarked car and a shotgun? Sure, why not? That can only end well.
Yeah. Like, you don't see any of the other cops throughout the rest of the movie. I imagine they're just, like, back at the police station filling out the paperwork to send him to the next city.
He's just like, give us a shotgun and a car, and they're like, sure, anything. And like he leaves, and they're like, thank God he's out now.
And they just go home. They go back to the police station, and they start working on sending him to the next city.
And they're like, he just murdered 4 innocent people, and they're like, okay, get the paperwork going.
Yep. That's why all of his names make no sense. Like in the second movie, Hard to Kill. They're like, Matthew Storm, sure.
Michael Scarn.
Yeah, Michael Scarn, might as well.
Yeah, no, all I can say is Gino Felino is an NYPD detective from Brooklyn who knows everyone and everything in his neighborhood. Killing his partner was someone's big mistake, because he's now out for justice. And some of that justice does involve kicking a guy in the nuts
so
for
hard
mistreating a dog.
That means one of us has to die. Don't mention it, brother.